Hello friends, welcome to Edwiki Learning channel. Please do subscribe to get more updates on the DevOps concepts. This video is part of the full course AWS DevOps Practitioner training. Please do check the description below to get the link for the complete full course. Without further delay, let's get into the video. Thank you.
Hello guys, good morning and welcome to the session, and let me get started with this context. Well, so the concept that I'm talking about today, right, is not a technical, but this is all about the process, right? How exactly we will be working in the real time as a DevOps engineer, right? So if you look into this microservices concept, right, there are multiple microservices that we need to build and deploy, correct? We by now I think you all can imagine what kind of the work it will be, how much work it will be for an engineer to ensure that all the different services are built, deployed, operational, and stable, up and running on the cluster, right? So it includes the AWS infrastructure, it includes the Kubernetes infrastructure, it includes the CICD automation, it includes all of your build deployment processes, right? It includes right, configuring your manifest files, preparing the configurations, correct guys? So let's say if you have some 50 to 100 microservices, there should be a proper planning, right? It's not like something today your manager come and say that, hey, there are 50 microservices that you need to build and deploy, you go and start the work. You got me right, what I'm trying to. So there should be a proper planning to be there, and like which microservice that we need to take on first, which microservice that we need to take on next, probably which activity that you need to do deliver first, which will be the next. There should be a proper sequencing, proper planning, proper timeline, correct? So without that, you can't just go and start activity, guys, correct? So today let me talk about that planning perspective, at least certain high level details that helps you guys to understand how exactly the things will be planned in the real time, right, to deliver this stuff. So at a high level, right, can I call out few activities, guys? Let's say today is the very first day for your project. Nothing is already there, okay? So then pretty much you need to spend some time in preparing the AWS infrastructure, preparing the Kubernetes infrastructure, configuring the required IAM rules, setting up the or installing the Jenkins, setting up the pipelines. I'm just trying to call out certain tasks that you need to deliver, correct? So pretty much from the management side, they have certain goals will be there in the sense, right, in general, to set up a project to make sure that everything is up and running. So it not about a one day job, right? So it takes months together in order to come to this stage. Okay, so usually your management will have some goals like, in this quarter, that means in the next 3 months of timeline. So these are the microservices that we need to build, deploy, operational. That's how they have some timelines will be there. So based on the goals that the company has on this project, right, what kind of the work and how many services that needs to be deployed. I mean to say, for us, it is a services. From business perspective, it's all about the features, correct? So they have certain features to be get delivered in the next quarter time. Like, they have a feature like we need to enable the payment services in the website. We need to enable the login functionality. We need to enable the sign up functionality. We need to, enable more security for the login. Maybe we need to implement the OTP method login. So like that, they'll be having certain features listed out, and they have a goal how many features that has to be rolled out in the next 3 months of time. So each feature is a microservice, right, guys, for us? So for them, it is a feature. For them, it is a feature improvement. But for us as a DevOps engineer, it's all about a service, right? So we need to support that and build it and deploy it and ensure the required infrastructure is there. And if not, you provision them, something like that. So that means there should be a proper planning should be there. In order to do that planning, right, most of the companies will be following the tool called Jira. So here I just logged into my Jira software. Jira is the planning tool, I would say, the project planning tool, right? So the Jira is the product of Atlassian company, which is again Bitbucket also the product of Atlassian, right? So the Jira also the product of Atlassian company. So Jira is like more popular software which we can use for the project plannings. So in this Jira, right, the teams will be planning and making the goals set for next 3 months of time or whatever the timelines that the company is deciding. So we need to understand certain terminologies in Jira, how exactly we will be working on the Jira side. And again, the Jira is available for free tier as well. You also can create your own account in Jira and can see how the Jira works. Just a free tier is available, right? At least for uh, some users. Okay, but yeah. Anyway, I will navigate through this Jira as well today. How it exactly working. So as I said, right, we need to come up with certain terminologies. Let me try to list them out here. Well, so the certain terminologies that we should be familiar here, right? The first thing is the Scrum. So SCRUM, Scrum is the process name that we are following here in order to start working and delivering your project. Okay. Well, now my mouse is connected. So let me know, guys, if you are able to hear me out. Thank you. Right. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the Scrum. Scrum is the name of the process. I would say like there should be some process in place, right? Let's say how to plan, right? Who should work on which task, in how many number of days we need to complete this task, right? How to measure how much work that can be done by a one single individual in a day. If you are working for 8 hours, in 8 hours how much work that you can do, you need to have some measurement in place, right? For all of these we are putting the name called Scrum. Scrum is a process that is talking about the best practices that you need to follow as a team in order to deliver your work in a nice format, or in a in a better way, right? So in the Scrum, so the very first thing that the process defines that, so let's say you have a target that in next 3 months of timeline your business should have so and so on features from the management side, right? So for you it is about the technicalities, right, which you need to implement it in order to support that features to be available to the end users on the production, correct? So it says that we need to divide, I mean to say, we can't plan for next 3 months, at least from your technical perspective, right? We can't say that, hey, today we'll do this work, after 3 months we'll do this work. You can't plan such a long duration. The things will be keep changing in middle as well, right? That's the reason it's better you plan for a specific short-term duration, which we will be calling it as a sprint cycle, or we call it as a sprint duration. The sprint is the terminology that we use here, which is the duration that you are picking up here for planning your implementations. In general, the sprint cycle will be 2 weeks. That means let's say your manager come and tell you that, hey, we are planning to deliver this whole bunch of features in next 3 months of time. Okay, forget about 3 months, right? At least for next 2 weeks, what is that we need to plan, right? That's how. So we all will be focusing on planning the stuff that we need to deliver for next 2 weeks of time. That 2 weeks is called as a sprint cycle. So once we decide that we'll plan for the 2 weeks of timeline, what is that we need to complete, then we need to have the sprint planning meeting. In the sprint planning meeting, right, your manager will be there, your lead will be there, you like all the engineers will be there, right, and the team, right. In this meeting, we will be all discussing about, right, okay, to deliver this whole 50 microservices in next 3 months. So first, let's target how many we can deliver in next 2 weeks of time. So that's how we'll be, coming into the discussion. Most of the times, the managers will tell you the priorities, because they know exactly which feature has to be delivered first, which feature has to be delivered next, right? So they'll come up with their priorities. From technical perspective, we need to give our inputs as well, right? To deliver that features, to deliver that services, what are all the dependencies would be required? Are we ready with the technical details or not? Whether it is possible to deliver them within 2 weeks or not. So from technical challenges perspective, you need to give your input as well. So like that, the planning meeting will be happen. In the planning meeting, right, we will be coming up with the tasks exactly that we need to deliver, right, in that 2 weeks of timeline. Let's say hypothetically, in the planning meeting, we decide that in the next 2 weeks of timeline, probably we will try to create a CI pipeline, right? So I'm just giving some examples, guys. So in the next 2 weeks of time, we'll try to create a CI pipeline for the service. We'll try to create a CD pipeline. Probably we'll work with the developers and understand the requirements. That means I will say gather the build requirements. That means we need to talk to the developer, gather the build steps, how many stages would be required for these services, which Java versions are dependent. Accordingly, need to write a Docker file, all these things, right? And prepare the CI supportings. So maybe need to gather the build dependencies, right? So then probably I need to deploy it into the dev. Let's say the focus is in next 2 weeks of time, let's focus on preparing the pipelines, gathering the requirement, ensuring that the automation works, ensure that the cluster is available, ensure that you have all the permissions are ready, then deploy to a dev at least. That's the goal, right? So then after 2 weeks, let's say the sprint is, this planning is start from tomorrow, right? It will complete by, let's say, 2 weeks, right? Probably it will be like 20th. So that means from March 4th to March 28th, the plan is to complete all these different activities. So again, at end of the March 20, that means at end of the sprint, again we will be having the sprint planning. In this sprint planning, this is the planning for what? This is the planning for the duration called March 20th to the another 2 weeks of time. So probably it will gonna be April 15th or 16th, whatever, right? So then again we'll be coming into the planning. Let's revisit how many tasks were completed in the last sprint, whatever were planned. Now let's plan for next 2 weeks of timeline, what and all things that we can be accomplished. As I said, mostly the manager only will come up with the tasks and the priorities based on their requirement, but we'll be talking about our technical challenges as well. So probably in this sprint planning, right, probably the goal is we need to deploy to QA. Okay, so let's start deploying to QA and perf. Sorry, right. So the plan is we need to deploy to QA and deploy to perf environment. Somehow my keyboard is not working. Yep. So we need to deploy to QA environment and we need to deploy to perf environment to get the validation done, get the approval from QA and performance teams to go to the production, ensure that all the things are working as expected. That's how we will be having the planning for this. So I'm just giving only few tasks, but it could be any other, whatever the manager come up, right? It may be that stuff. Sometimes only the build and deployment. Sometimes in between the manager may come and ask you that, hey, we need to create a one more new EKS cluster. Probably we are coming up with a new different project. Sometimes the managers come and ask you that, can you increase the worker node numbers because the current worker nodes are not capable to run the workload, right? Sometimes may come up and ask you, right, the existing applications that were running, existing pipeline were having some issue, we need to upgrade it. You got me? So some activities will be keep coming in from the manager side, so manager know exactly what needs to be planned for next 2 weeks of timeline that will be coming into the, bringing up into the planning meeting, right? Let's say at a high level in this 2 weeks of timeline it is planned till perf. So after in the next planning again, right? In the next planning, probably we'll plan for the production. That's how it works, guys, right? The moment when the code is ready, it will not be get deployed into everywhere just like that. It is properly planned and right in which sprint it has to go to dev, when it has to go to QA or perf, when it has to go to production. Like that, the planning will be happen, and accordingly we'll be working on these things. So this is called as a sprint planning, and you'll be involved in the sprint planning. The manager will basically decide what tasks that we need to deliver, right, to accomplish the bigger goal that they have to complete or accomplish within a quarter time or within 3 months timeline. Let's say the 3 months timelines is to build and deploy all of the 50 services. So the manager will be dividing that it into multiple sprints, and he will ensure how much scope that can be accomplished in each sprint, right? So the next thing is let's say uh, in the first sprint, I'm targeting to create a CI pipeline, create a CD pipeline, gather the requirement, deploy to dev. Let's say 4 tasks. How do we know that only these 4 can be done in a week, in a 2 weeks of time? Why can't be 10 tasks? Why can't be 50 tasks? Getting me? So how much work that can be done within a 2 weeks of timeline? How do we measure that activity, that thing, right? You getting me? So within 8 hours, 8 into like 2 weeks, right? So probably you'll be working for 80 hours. So probably 8 into 5, 40, right? And 40 hours is for week, and 80 hours is for 2 weeks, right? So that means within 80 hours, how much work that you can do as one individual, that something has to be planned, measured. We can't give you the overburden, right? And we can't give you the less work as well. So we should know exactly how much that you can deliver within 8 hours of time. So how that can be measured by your manager. Let me know, guys, if you are able to see my screen, and you should be able to see my notepad or the paint. So we don't have any beautiful animations the way how we have the animations for the technical concepts. This is a general concept that we are talking about. Getting me? Yes, we are seeing the paint, and I'm just trying to put some notes in the paints only because we don't have a beautiful animations that you have been adopted so far for the technical concept that we delivered. Okay, well, uh, I was saying, like, how a manager know that how much work that you can do as an individual, right? So the general theory is like this. Of course, it will be keep changing from a company to company because it's just a process. The general theory says that, right? So any activity that you are planning, the activity will be measured with the points, which we are calling it as a 0 points. So 0 point are nothing but we need to assign the points to the each task, and that point will tell exactly how much effort that you need to put on to accomplish the task. In general, the 0 points will be 1, right, 2, 3, and 4. So one pointer is mean that, sorry, one pointer is mean that it's very easy task. You might have been done the task a couple of times in previous days. The work is keep on repeating. You know exactly what needs to be done. It's a simple task. So that kind of the tasks are you know measured as a one pointer task. So I would say like simple and repetitive. Okay, the two pointer is mean that right, it is little complex but repetitive. That means you might have been done the task a couple of times in a previous for the same project probably, but it is little complex in the sense little sensitive. There are many steps that are there that you need to execute, many commands that you need to follow, a lot of process that you need to follow. You need to talk to multiple teams in order to make the work done, right? So if that is the case, we will be considering that as a two pointer task. And let's say this is a new task. You don't know what needs to be done exactly, but you are being asked to do this now, right? So that kind of the tasks are pointed as a three, right? The four, in a sense, you don't know exactly whether that works or not. That means you don't have the architecture at all. You don't have the integration at all, right? That means, as an example, I'll tell you like this. If I ask you, like, hey, can you work with Argo and start doing the CICD deployment? Okay. So if I ask you to set up the Argo, right? You don't know what is Argo first of all as of today. Getting me? You don't know what is Argo. The Argo is not at all there in your environment. The first time we need to install and set up the Argo, right? You don't know how it works. First of all, you don't know whether the Argo will be suitable for our project or not. Getting me? So in that scenario, we will be calling it as a four-pointer task because we need to read it, we need to understand it, we need to learn it, need to install it, verify it works or not, right? We need to do a lot of R&D in this case, right? I would say like a lot of POC, proof of concept, correct? So that kind of the major task, we will be considering it as a four pointers, which we need to do a lot of R&D and research and do the things. The three pointer is like a new task, right? Maybe I'll say, right, hey, can you go and set up the CI/CD pipeline for this? Probably the CI/CD pipeline, you know already how it works. Probably it is there in some other projects, maybe in a same company, someone else might have been already implemented. Already there is a proper defined documentation is there how it can be, but maybe for you it is a first time that you are doing it. You getting me, guys? So then he will say that, hey, you take three pointer for this because this is a well-known task. Maybe for you it is a new task, you have not done this before, but it is a well-known task that everyone has done already, right? It is a well-known task, already documentation is available. It's a well-known task which the similar activity already done for different projects. Getting me? So they will give you some information. So that kind of things are pointed as a three pointer. That's how they have some strategy. And again, there is no constant answer for this. Sometimes the manager will tell you that, hey, this is the one pointer, you need to defend on this. No, it should be a two pointer. Manager says that it is very simple task, you need to say that no, this is not a simple, it has to go with a lot of steps, so it may be a two pointer. That's always some negotiation will happen on that as well, right? We need to give our justification why it is two pointer. The manager has to accept the justification as well. That's how somehow we'll come to one story point for the each task. Why it is important on this? In general, the way how the organization look at, right, one pointer is mean that one day work is a general strategy. So one pointer is mean that one day of effort. Two pointer is mean that let's say 2 days of effort. Three pointer is mean that let's say 3 days of effort. That's how the people will now try to measure the work. So if then let's say you need to work for 2 weeks, right? 2 weeks is like a 10 working days, correct? So if it is 10 working days, how many points that you need to work on? Total 10 points of work that you need to take on, you need to deliver, right? So if you are taking one pointer stories, sorry, if you are taking one pointer task, the task is called as a story, guys. Okay. Let's say create a CI/CD pipeline is one story. The another terminology that you need to understand is Jira story. Story means a task. Create a CI/CD pipeline is one story. Create a CD pipeline is one story, like that. Okay. So if you are taking one pointer story, then you need to deliver 10 stories, correct? But if you are taking 2 pointer stories, you need to deliver only 5 stories. 5 into 10, 10 points, right? Getting me, guys? So that's how we will be calculating how many stories that you need to work on in a sprint duration based on the complexity, based on the pointing system here. The overall, you need to work with a total at 10 points. That's how the manager will look at. That's how we are actually measuring the work, how much that you can accomplish. So now any task that you have been created or any story that is created, the story will be pointed. Let's say create a CI/CD pipeline, let's say 2 pointer. Creating the CD pipeline, maybe a 2 pointer, right? So maybe gathering the build and deployments, maybe a 3 pointer. Getting the information from developers, understanding it, setting up the meetings with them, maybe a 3 pointer. Like that, we'll put some points, and finally 10 points of 10 points worth of stories will be assigned to your name, and we need to work on those stories one by one, one by one. So if you ask me now, like what will be our daily activities in a real time? What is your daily activity now, guys? In general, right, the sprint will be started on one day, and that sprint will be going on for 2 weeks of timeline, right? Your goal is to start the sprint, the day one when the sprint is started. Plan your stories for next 2 weeks, how you need to work on, start working on each story, and ensure that the stories are getting completed. Every day you look into your sprint board. So this is a one more terminology, Jira board. Jira board in the sense that is the place where you see all the stories, right? So look into your Jira board, see your stories assigned, and start working on the stories and get them delivered. So this sprint you may be having the stories for creating a CI/CD pipeline. Next sprint you may be having the stories to create a deploy the clusters. The other day, the next sprint you may be having the stories related to the infrastructure preparation by changing some Terraform code changes. One sprint you may be having the stories to fix the existing pipelines based on the developers requirement. So what stories that you need to get on, that managers will decide based on the business priorities, and based on the stories that you get in right, start working on. That's a simple Scrum process, how it will be followed in the real time. So here all what you need to understand, what is Jira board, Jira story, Jira points, how the sprint planning will be happening, and what is your sprint cycle, how the Jira points are allocated for each and every story, and total how many points that you will be working on for a sprint time. Are we good on this? So in general, we will not be worried too much about the sprint planning, like what kind of the work that we need to do. The managers will come up with some work, and they will start slotting it based on the business priorities that they have. Whatever is assigned for you on that sprint, you are responsible to deliver that within that 2 weeks of timeline. Right? So here I can show you the Jira board, how it look like. So I have my previous folks worked on this Jira, and I have created some stories and have allocated these stories for their individual names as well. And here I can show you the Jira stories. This is called as a Jira board, guys. In the Jira board, you can see the Jira story. You see here, one story is all about deploying the Lambda, right, for security group rules validation, right? One story is for deploying the Prometheus stack. necessary, right? Let's say one story is for setting up some IAM roles. So if you open any story, that story will have the details about the story, what needs to be done on the story. You can see the story description as well here. The story description will be, will be written by the your product managers only, but of course they may ask you as well to add some more details here based on the requirement, but the requirement will be explained by your product manager only, what is that they are expecting on this story. So you need to read your description and understand it and start working on this to deliver this story, right? So this story will be assigned to your name, and the story will have some pointing system here. It's all about, there will be a manager to manage this whole Jira process, or the whole Scrum process, which we call it as a Scrum Master, right? So the Scrum Master will take care of like creating the stories, giving the points, right? Ensure that the description is there. All these things will be taken care by the Scrum Master only. So we just need to start working on the story, right? So initially, when the story is given to you, the story will be in the to-do status, right? So whenever you start working on the story, you need to move the story it into in progress. Just drag and drop the story it into in progress. Now that means you are currently working on the stories. So your managers will know that you are currently working on this particular story, right? So once you're done with your story, then you need to move the story to the review. Review in the sense, you are done from your side, but someone has to verify that, right? Whether you did it correctly or not. Mostly your managers will verify it one more time once you have completed the story, right? So once it is verified, then the story will be moving into a done state. So most likely you move the story from to do to in progress to review. Once the things are verified, the Scrum managers will take care of moving it into done. You should not move to done by yourself, because you did the work, you, right? Someone has to verify and someone has to ensure that the story is in done state or completed. That's it. That's so simple now, right? The process. So let's say there is a 3 pointer story which take 3 days of time, right? Let's say you started you moving the story to in progress today. You started off working on this story today to develop some Python code and all. After 3 days, let's say you are not able to complete, right? You should not call out that, hey, I'm not able to like I'm not able to complete the story for so and so reasons, right? After 3 days, if you have any issues, you need to call out the issues if you're not able to complete the story immediately. For that, there is a Scrum meeting. So we call it as one more terminology is called, right, Scrum meeting. Scrum meeting will be happening every day, right? So every day morning there will be a Scrum meeting where you and all the engineers, managers, everyone will be there in the meeting. In the meeting, you need to call out, like there are 3 items that you need to call out. One, what you did yesterday. What are you going to do today? And the third item is, do you need any help or you are good to go with your activity? So these are the 3 items that you need to call out every day in the morning in the Scrum meeting, right? So based on that, the managers will understand that, whether all good or not, whether you need any help or not. Let's say you are not telling that you need help, or you block somewhere, you are not able to proceed further, right? And then after 3 days, 4 days, you come and say that, hey, I'm not able to do this and I'm lagging somewhere. So then they'll ask you, why did not you told this before only? Because every day there is a Scrum meeting, right? That's how it works. Just to the management understand that whether you are able to do it or not, you need a help or not, so that the things will be proceeded right in a right way by assigning you or by giving you some other resource help as well if you are not able to, guys. That's how we need to call out the things. Well, so that means what? So just to put a summary here, right? So in general, you get the sprint started, you work on the sprint, you update your daily Scrum meeting, what is that you are working on, how you are working on, ensure that your stories are completed within a sprint time. And again, sprint started, your life will be repeated again. That's how the things will work out. And these are the different points that you need to understand, because interviewer may ask you that, hey, how are you working on? How will you get a work? Right? How many points that you are working on, which tool that you are using for your daily operational times, what is your daily responsibilities. For all of these different questions, right, this Scrum process session, whatever we are talking today, will work, will help you, right? So and the stories may be implementing the new things, or the stories will be an enhancement. The stories could be, right, fixing some existing things, whatever it is. It's all about the Jira stories only, right? So you will be not working on the I mean to say it's all about Jira only, but in the Jira itself there is a category like is it the feature, is it the new implementation, is it the bug that you are fixing for the existing. That category will be there in the Jira, so that we need to specify that. But most likely 90% will be working on the stories only for the future enhancements only. But fixing the bug is like once in a while. It's very rare, right? Any questions, do let me know, guys. Right, creating the Jira story will be done by the Scrum manager. Whatever I talk about today regarding the Scrum, everything will be handled by the Scrum manager. So Scrum manager is different, your product manager is different. The Scrum manager only to manage your Jira process, uh, right? And the whether the users, the engineers are actually closing them or not, how many are pending, how many are, right, how the progress is going on. That is what is being tracked by the Scrum manager, right? And we need not to worry about the priority, right? The priority is something that the managers will decide. The Scrum manager, your managers will decide what is that you need to work on. We'll never worry about any of the priorities. Whatever their priority, right, we just need to start working on them accordingly. Even they will be putting into your Jira stories as well. And in the Jira story also, they will call out exactly in the sprint planning meeting which is priority, which is not priority, which you need to start working on, which we need to start working on next. All these things will be uh, uh, will be called out in the planning meeting itself. Accordingly, we just need to follow them. So we'll not set a priority by ourselves.